What's going on, Links and Lives family? Welcome to the first episode of the Links and Lives podcast. It's your host, Derien.
AG.
So we both came up with 3 topics that we want to share with y'all about just real life experiences that we have with entrepreneurship, things that we learned. And hopefully y'all out there, anybody looking to start a business or become an entrepreneur, y'all can take some value away from some of the things that we've learned over the past few years. So I'm going to let AG kick it off with his first one.
Take some notes. Knowing the importance of networking has definitely gotten me into doors that I never thought that I would be in. Early on, I feel like I didn't take networking as seriously.
I feel like that's really like one of your gifts too, is kind of, I don't know, getting in the back door. I was like, how do you, I learned that from you too. Like there was a time when we pulled up to an event that we weren't supposed to actually be at. Like the person told us not to come, and then this guy was saying we need to pull up anyway, and it ended up becoming like a really huge play. I had a great personal, I still do to this day, I have a personal relationship with that person. So I guess, where did you get that like mentality of just like creating opportunities? Because I think a lot of people think that networking, you have to go to these events and things like that, like pay to network. So how do you view that?
I feel like networking isn't just going to events. We live in the social media time. If you, whatever industry you're in, I guarantee you can find somebody online that's doing what you're doing 10 times better.
100%.
So you need to go follow that person, see who that person's following, and don't just go for like the 80K, 100K, million follower people. Go for those people with like under 10K followers. Yeah. People that you have a way better chance of actually connecting with. Being an entrepreneur, you got to develop that. Even if you're introverted, even if you're laid back to yourself, you gotta develop that. Personally, I started taking that seriously as we started doing more shows, and you really getting into the field of what we were doing music wise and performance wise. Just when people say no, it actually makes me want to do it even more. Yeah. That's just real.
Yeah, and like you said, a lot of things too boil down to personal relationships. Like,
for sure,
I just feel like everything you want, a person has the keys to it. You know what I mean? Like you will at some point have to go through a person to get it. So that's a huge one. On my end, my first big one was nobody wants to really help you unless they're benefiting in some type of way. So it's the whole idea of like quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Do something for me, I do something for you. But at the end of the day, I think people view that as like a bad thing. Like people always want something, and this is where we get like the whole business is business like kind of term. But I do think that that's just the way things go. Like everybody to some degree is selfish, right? Like we all have our own dreams and goals we want to get to. So it's also selfish, I think, as an entrepreneur or an aspiring one, if you're out here networking or doing these things, to reach out to people expecting them to help you, or like expecting them to do something for you when you're not really providing them any value. You know what I mean? So it's not really wrong, in my opinion, for the person you're asking help for to expect you to do something for them, right? Like, so I think instead of focusing on what people can do for you and like running around trying to ask people for things and whatever, freebies basically, focus on how you can provide them value. Like how can I make what I'm trying to do a win-win for both of us, where it's not just a parasitic relationship. I'm just reaching out to you, you help me out, but
you really don't even want to be asking for anything other than like maybe some good pointers. But you don't want to come off basic either. You want to be well thought out.
I feel like that ties into your point too. Like if you don't have a relationship with that person, like what are you asking them for? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you really are kind of just jumping out and just asking them like to help you out basically. So that's pretty much what I had is, when you approach people, just make sure that it's a win-win for both of y'all. Don't just expect them to help you for nothing, or get upset when they don't want to help you for nothing. So that's my first one. What's your second one?
That leads me into time management and organization. I feel being on an entrepreneurial grind, I spent a lot of time in corporate America. I've worked for Jimmy John's, I've worked for AMCC Factory, I've worked for Taco Bell, a lot of food stuff, a lot of just mindless work. I did lifeguarding, worked at a gym. So I've always had a job per se, and there's nothing wrong with that, but once you get into the flow of that job, sometimes you might show up 15 minutes late. Sometimes you might show up an hour late. Sometimes you might call in. Sometimes you might want to take a mental health day or something like that. When it comes to your business and your brand, you can't do that. It's like the polar opposite. You got to be at events and meetings 15, 30 minutes early. You got to be able to map out whatever you got going on, especially if you are, let's say you have a crowdfunder a leader of a crowdfunder who's ready to invest in your business. You're not going to be late to that. You're just not. You might be late to your little job that you don't really care about. So you have to flip that mentality once you become an entrepreneur. Organization too, as far as like organizing your notes, organizing your emails, being able to sum your business up in like 1 to 2 sentences.
That's a big one.
It's short out here. Attention spans are short out here. You don't got all day to try to spit out a whole business plan.
Yeah,
so.
That's a big one. And we talk about too, like how powerful our phones are now. It's like when it comes to getting organized, I mean, there's really almost no excuse if you have an iPhone or a smartphone. It doesn't even matter if you have an iPhone. Like there's so many different apps and different like productivity apps and storage apps, different ways that people can, calendars, reminders. I use Trello for some things that like take like little random notes. So it's just whatever it works for you. But I definitely agree. Like you have to have a workflow or productivity workflow, some type of way. Time into my second one. I don't think that you can win alone as an entrepreneur. So I tried in my first business to go at it kind of alone to a degree. Like I did have a team of people around me, but it wasn't consistent throughout the whole time. And like I was pretty much trying to do everything or wear all the hats, which is like not the best idea because number one, you're just not good at everything, right? So that's just part of being honest with yourself. Like you can't be good at everything. And even if you could, there's just not enough time in the day, right? Like to do everything. So in the ideal world, best case scenario, if you're able to wear every hat in the business and do everything, like when are you going to have the time to enjoy the benefits of any of that, you know what I mean, or have a personal life of any sort? So super important, I think. Another thing too is like we talk about how difficult it is, like the ups and downs. It's like this, right? We describe like the emotional roller coasters of entrepreneurship. So it's like you want to have people with you or in your corner when like you're down here, but also it feels good when you're like, so when you're up here and you're celebrating, you want to have people there who understand what that win feels like or what that success feels like. So there's just so many different reasons why I think it's not something you want to take on alone. Like it's hard enough to do by itself. So I think you definitely just want to have a team with you.
Yeah, you do for sure. I mean, I know we both have athletic backgrounds and just even being a team player, say you play basketball, it's 5 on the court versus 5. You can't do 1 versus 5. And I for sure feel like that with entrepreneurship too, because there's a lot of things that you can do yourself, yes. And it's always, I feel like it's best to learn the whole circle of the business.
Definitely.
Even if you have no idea what your, let's say you just made the idea of the business. You don't know numbers, you don't know design, you don't know budgeting, you don't know anything but the fact that you wanted to start this car wash. You know what I'm saying? Or just this basic business, right? If you don't have employees to come, you're not washing the cars by yourself. You're not going to vacuum out the cars by yourself. You're not handling the money by yourself. So you have to think about that. We do need people. Like I do agree that being selfish I've learned over the years for sure that being selfish is very important. But you also have to delegate that selfishness.
Of course, yeah.
So, you need at least a couple of people on your team that do what you don't do. You don't want to get a bunch of team of people that do the same thing.
That's the key. Yeah, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and that goes back to just being like self-aware, like being able to be real with yourself about what you're good at or what you're not good at, but also being able to identify that in other people too, and know how to build your team. So I agree with that 100%. So what's your third one?
And that also leads me to my final point: doing your own numbers and taking accounting seriously. Even if you have to take a YouTube university class on learning how to run Excel, learning how to just plug and chug your numbers, you can at least see, you got to track your own expenses. Even if you have a business that's making $100 a month, you need to know how you made that $100 a month. You need to know what it costed you to make that $100 a month. And you need to know, are you even able to retain any money from that $100? So being able to turn that 100 into 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, it's like people think that you're just gonna get a big sum of money dropped on you and then you're gonna learn budgeting. No, you have to learn how to budget from literally $1, because everything you spend on your business is an expense. It's not a personal thing. You know what I'm saying? Even on the personal side, I think it's important to learn budgeting, but specifically for your business, you know, when it comes to tax time or, you know, if you have employees, you got to know what you're grossing, what you're netting. Then you gotta pass out checks. You gotta pay taxes on stuff. There's just a lot that goes in there. So you want to at least have a basic foundation of that.
Absolutely, I agree. And to your point earlier about having like structure, organization, like a system to do that as well too. I'll be honest, like I was doing all my business accounting out of Excel, and like I moved to QuickBooks recently, which has been a lifesaver because all of this is connected to all of my debit cards. So every time I make a transaction on any card, debit or credit, like I just have to go in and categorize it, as opposed to like keep the receipt, go home, make sure I put it in the right thing, and make sure I tally everything up the right way and categorize stuff. Like it's just a nightmare. So I agree. And also too, like that could be a make or break for like the financial health of your business. Because when it comes to like the write-ups at the end of the year and making sure you did everything correctly, like that could be the difference between like what you take home and what you pay to the government. So
running a business, you pay taxes. Everyone, like I said, I spent plenty of time in corporate America. I know what it's like to wait on that W-2 check. It's February, March. You know what I'm saying? You ready for that check to drop?
I'm waiting on mine
When you run a business, you're typically paying money out, especially if you made money.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
absolutely,
that's big to know.
Yup. And then my final one is just prepare to never stop learning.
I like that one.
It's like what you were saying earlier. I mean, I think a lot of people get hung up in the ideation phase of a business because they're afraid, like, oh, I don't know this, I don't know that. But the truth is, like, I don't think most people do. Like, most people don't know things. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
none of us know anything.
Yeah,
you don't know anything.
You don't know. I mean, you just learn by doing. You learn by trying. You learn from failure, quote unquote. I mean, that's what you really want to call it. But I personally feel like as long as you don't quit, like, you don't fail. You know, you learn. You roll that knowledge, that experience over into the next thing. So, just prepare to never stop learning. Like, it's okay to not know something. It's okay to jump in and not have everything figured out, and you can't prepare for everything. So I think people get stuck in that loop of like planning constantly and trying to figure out like, okay, here's my plan B, here's my plan C. It's like, all right,
you really don't even need plan C.
Yeah, exactly.
If you stick to plan A,
exactly,
it's just little, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Subsidiaries.
What do you mean? Like,
so basically, you have Plan A, but then you have something under it, but it's still a part.
Yeah,
of
exactly.
Plan A.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Kind of like a business, like a big conglomerate, like
exactly.
Whoever owns Coke, then they own
exactly. And it's nothing. I'm not saying like not to have like that's still. I mean, because we don't know what we don't know. There's no way to guarantee that like Plan A is going to work. So like, it's nothing wrong with having a Plan B, but
or like I'm saying, like, if it correlates. So like, let's say, like for you, you're a developer. You develop. Right? Yeah. That's your Plan A. But Plan B, your Plan A, you might be with this big company, but Plan B, you might be able to go finesse a job with Google. But you still stayed in what you got your credentials in. That's really what I mean. Like, especially if you go learn it. This is a skill-based economy now. So if you go learn a fire skill, it's gonna be very hard for you to go from developing to selling shoes.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Having like a plan that correlates, basically. Like they somehow, if it makes sense that if you, the first thing doesn't work out, the experience. The experience will still roll over into whatever Plan B is and so forth. So just being prepared to learn. Like, I mean, it's never gonna stop. Like, even when you master something, you get good at something, you put in your 10,000 hours or something, you're still going to be learning, even if not in that area. Hopefully you still are, because you'll never probably know everything in one area, but there'll be other things for you to get into and to learn, and all of that's going to be equally important to your business. So I think being a student is super important. That's our first episode, y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all took notes. Hope y'all enjoyed that first episode. But yeah, check us out again on episode 2, Links Live Podcast. But again, I'm your host, Derien.
AG.
And we'll see y'all next episode.
Peace.